Colin. Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome back to the newest episode of the PRIMLLIFE Podcast. The topic of dating is something that so many people, including myself, are still very much in the process of learning how to do correctly in today's society. And being such a complicated topic, you have to learn from other people. You always have to be open to learning about other people's experiences, hearing what they have to say about it, and then adding it to what you do in your life. I think the main failure that people get up and doing is they do the exact same thing, hoping that their relationship or themselves will eventually change, and it never does. And so being able to learn and surround yourself with people who are talented in that area and able to help you understand women, in my case, better, and men in other women's cases, is something that has changed my life drastically. And have Jenny on today is an absolute blessing from the LOVEPILL Instagram page. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic. I'm really looking forward to hearing about some of the things that I can apply to my life, and many of the viewers are going to be super interested to hear about what they can apply to their life. So many pages, they'll tell you what is wrong, but they won't tell you how to act on it. And that's that's a trap that I got stuck in, where it's I knew I was failing at something, but it's just how can I change this? And have your page has given me a lot of information to work on as well too, and it's going to be a great time hearing what I can do to be better for my significant other, and then people in the audience too as well, hearing what they can be doing for theirs as well. So what was your motivation for starting the page?
Relationships have always been something I've been very interested in. Some people are really good at some certain thing, and for me that was always relationships. I can just sort of go from point A to point Z and everywhere in between, and just figure these things out fairly easily for me. And Ajax or Alexander Cortez was putting stories up every day that I was getting pretty addicted to. So he motivated me or prompted me to do my own stories. So that was really where it all began. I thought, it started with an Instagram story. So I thought that was really phenomenal for me to just pick up my cue from there and put out the information I wanted to put out, and people found it interesting, and so here I am.
Hey, that is awesome. I feel like so many things start off as small, and then they certainly grow to massive heights like your page is doing with over 6,000 followers, and you said you've only been doing it for about a year and a half, I think it was?
Yeah, and the thing is I'm concentrating on putting up more content posts on the page so that I can get more people to come by. When I do that, a lot of times I'll get a lot of shares on those, and then I'll pick up 500, 600, 700 followers, sometimes 1,000. Yeah. So that kind of freaks me out because I'm kind of an introvert, I guess, and I start getting inundated with questions from all kinds of people and comments, and it kind of makes me a little uncomfortable. So then I kind of revert back to being quiet. So I just have to be consistent with it, and I think I will definitely continue to grow my audience for sure.
One of the awesome things I think is so good for you getting the clicks is that it's such an emotional topic for so many people, because for me personally, I love being told what I can be doing better in any area of my life, but so many people, they hate it, and so they'll respond to it, they'll share it with whatever people they have with their followers, and whatever response it gets, it's getting a lot of it, good or bad. And so for driving clicks to your page, that's been huge too, but it's also stuff that people who are truly willing to grow, they can learn from. So you're giving men and women the tools to make the relationships better, understand themselves better, and that for me was the main factor in bringing you on today. So yeah, it's a ton of great information on there, a ton of stuff that makes me really think. But I'm going to start off with a little bit of a big question, and something that I probably have my own answer to, but I'd love to hear what the expert has to say about it. What do you think the biggest problem is with relationships not being successful in today's society?
The utter lack of social skills. People just don't know how to talk to each other. They don't know how to conduct themselves in a way that other people would deem them attractive and desirable. I see a lot of problems with oversharing.
Yeah.
It's you go on I see oversharing happening on just within the few first text interactions. It's people feel like they want the other person to be their therapist. And that is so unattractive. I mean, I understand that people have problems, but if you want to be a potential serious candidate for someone to date, they don't want those kind of problems. They don't want that kind of baggage presented to them immediately upon meeting.
Yeah.
So I think people really need to, the thing that they used to talk about when I was a kid was think before you speak. You
Yeah.
know, I don't know if they tell people that nowadays anymore, but I think it's still very useful to anyone to be cognizant of how they want to present themselves, how they want to talk to people, what image they want to project and portray.
Hmm.
So to me, it's 100% social skills for the
You know,
most part.
I
Mhm.
would totally have to agree to that. I can't tell you how many guys my age cannot talk to women at all. They might be able to text them, but when it comes to any interaction that is face to face, talking to them, or in, Lord forbid, approaching them, then
Mhm.
they just immediately fall apart. And I think it has to do with a little bit with phones, and also, honestly, probably with just being able to text people, having that easy alternative
Mhm.
to actually going face to face to talk to them is probably something that is the biggest attractor of actually developing those social skills. If for people who don't have those social skills, how would you recommend they start to get them eventually so that they can succeed in being confident and able to not scare off the date initially?
Well, for the most part, they just need some practice. With the COVID thing and everything happened, everybody just became shut-ins and recluses. We have to wear masks. That's so um, impersonal. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then with everybody being stuck with their face in the phone, and that they're not really getting human interaction, you need to talk to as many people as you can. Just
Yeah.
practice at it, relax and be comfortable with yourself, and want to empathize mostly with people. Like if you're having a conversation with someone, like you and I are having a conversation, we both present good listening skills. I mean, that goes really far. So when you talk to someone and they say something to you, you repeat it back to them. I have this thing where I teach people or instruct them to listen, repeat, affirm. So you tell me your name, and then I tell you mine, and then how's your day, and then small talk from there happens. And my day is going great. Got a flat tire on the way in, and it's just a bummer. And then you basically follow up. You repeat, oh, you got a flat tire. Oh, that sucks. I've been there. That happened to me. Then you throw in your own sort of anecdote to go with that, and suddenly you're building a rapport with people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%.
It's mostly just listening, like active listening skills. Listen to what the other person says, follow up with by affirming what they said, that you understand what they say, and then share your own personal story or anecdote with them. And
Yeah.
then suddenly, oh, this person gets me, they know me. I could tell this person anything.
The
So,
funny thing is, it's such a simple concept that
mhm.
people who are good communicators can get quite easily. The problem is that most people aren't good communicators and just don't know where to even begin with talking. And then they get in their heads about things, and either that they can't talk at all, or they're filling every second with just talking, talking, talking. I feel like the best people I know are the ones who only say things of value or things that contribute to the conversation. They don't speak without meaning, and they don't live life without meaning either. And so bring some meaning to like their interactions, especially for guys and girls, is something that what you said, that building rapport is huge in that area. When it comes to it, so let's say they're having a conversation, they're talking to each other. How would they vet the person to see if they're a good match? If they're both interested in finding so they know that they're both interested in finding someone, they don't know if that person's yet. How would you vet a potential mate?
Well, a lot of people tend to let the mask slip, along with the oversharing that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
It's kind of easy to lead people into what you want to know about them. There's a quote that said, "The most truthful things are said in jest." So if you say that, like, for instance, I had a kind of a joke where, or I've heard of women doing this where they ask a guy, what kind of porn do you like to watch? Just kind of make it sound like they're okay with it, to see what kind of, what he lets on about that. Like if he's maybe a porn addict or something like that. Or with men, they can ask a woman, how do you feel about kids? I mean, a lot of people, and instead of making it such a loaded question, you could say something like, well, a lot of people don't seem to be interested in having kids. And I don't know, it's a personal choice that I maybe haven't put that much thought into, but maybe I won't have kids. I don't know. What do you think about that? Something like that.
Yeah.
Something that kind of leads them to want to reveal those kinds of things about themselves.
The way you put it was great, in making it almost like a less serious conversation. If you asked, either of those questions to me, it's something that just comes off as a lot more easy to approach versus, how many kids you plan on having, just straight to the point, bring it up as a joke. I like that. To go off of what you said earlier, the type of porn that people watch, I'm incredibly anti-porn, and, I post a lot about being anti-porn. How do women view men who watch porn?
How do women view them?
Yes.
Well, for the most part, from what I've seen, it's not something that women are very welcome to. They're kind of disappointed with that. They have self-conscious issues, body issues that come up with that. They feel like they can't compete with women on the screen, and they don't want to have to compete with a woman on the screen. They're concerned about impotence, because that's a big problem. Young men, it kind of boggles the mind that they can't perform sexually like a young virile man should know how to because of porn use. And it's glad that you're vehement anti-porn, because all of the people that I generally talk to are as well. But I use that as an example, as a litmus test because a woman needs to find that out very quickly if the man has that problem. And it's a widespread problem, and a lot of women, they don't agree with it, they don't like it, they don't want to wrap their mind around any concept that he'll be addicted to porn and have trouble performing. So it's I've had many women tell me that they've dumped a guy on the spot for not being able to perform. So
what you said about guys not being able to perform, especially young guys, it's like the problem. Like it should never be a problem, and especially especially the younger ages. But even much past that, you men should never be experiencing performance issues who are young, and definitely, it raises a lot of red flags in terms of, the long-term ramifications of doing something like that. And like you said, the women don't feel good hearing that the man that they're with watches porn and whatnot as well too. A lot of self-confidence stuff as well. Great stuff. It was funny. I did a video on it probably 6 months ago-ish, and it's one of my most disliked and liked videos, which really kind of shows the people that are sort of watching that stuff and responding to that stuff, how they feel about it as well too. Sure. And I've had a few guys come at me for it and been like, you think watching porn is bad? And then I'm like, yeah, bro, you're literally a cuck. And then they stop and they think about it and they're like, I watch it for the plot. I'm like, oh, sure you do. And then
I actually told you that. That's so bullshit.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, sure, bro. You live with it. You think that. Go ahead and lie to yourself about that as well too. You're addicted. If you stopped, you wouldn't be able to go a day without it. And then they kind of agree with me on that sense as well too. But it's very much not contributing anything to the dating system.
Oh my God, that's so funny that it's like the people that say that they look. That was an excuse in the 80s with men who look at Playboy. Oh, I read it for the editorial opinions. sure.
Sure, buddy. You believe that. Go ahead and tell people that. Yeah. But the funny thing is, even when they talk about it, though, the ones who are even like willing to like approach me on it, is very few. Very few guys, even if they disagree with me or think they disagree with me, very few of them are willing to actually talk to me about it. The ones that are, even they say it with shame. Even they know it's wrong too, which is kind of goes to tell like this isn't okay and it shouldn't be normalized. And there needs to be some work done in today's society on that level as well too. That go ahead.
When I was young and before it was widespread all over the internet, I mean, you had to go into the CD shop and talk to the fat guy behind the counter to tell him what you want, and you had to drive your vehicle there to and from. You had to get the black plastic bag to wrap your item in. There was a lot of shame and stigma surrounding porn use then.
Yeah.
Now it just seems like you'll have guys who share like, who's your favorite porn star? They know all the names of them, and did you see this clip with so and so and so? And they just, it's kind of like they're talking about what kind of beer they were drinking or something.
Yeah.
Just so common like that.
But even with it being common, they still say it with shame. Like they might bring it up, and even if they do bring it up and say it, they still say it in a way that indicates that they themselves aren't proud of it. They might be bringing it up as like a conversation point, or because they're comfortable. But even they aren't like really like, they don't enjoy saying the words themselves, which I just think is funny and kind of speaks for itself on that matter.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. It's way more mainstream, and you'll have certain girls who will try to accommodate, and they always cut their own nose off to spite their own face or shoot themselves in the foot when they say, "Oh yeah, sure, honey, let's we can watch porn together," or I don't mind. And then next thing you know, it's the whole relationship falls apart because of it. So, I mean, I just don't think it's a good idea to include that in your relationship. And I think that the vast majority of women feel the same way.
I agree with you on that matter. So we talked about what makes men undesirable and the porn use in that matter. If you were to bring forth the most important qualities that makes a man attractive long term and makes a woman want to be with the man long term, what would they be?
Male strength.
There you go.
I know that's kind of a broad term to use to describe men, but male strength can be it encompasses so many different things, whether he's got psychological strength, physical strength, strength in the boardroom, strength as an entrepreneur, enterprise type of man who's, innovative, things like that, smart, brawn, all of those things. If he's good at making money, he has strong social skills, or really kind of sets men apart. If you got a guy who knows how to, for lack of a better term, shoot the shit with other guys and other women, and can be charming and socially attractive, that's very, very attractive. So women definitely look at that. If a guy's got psychological know-how, I guess that's where the dark triad traits come in, because they're very cunning. They can predict what a person's going to do next, that kind of thing. If a man can show those things, it's very attractive. So that's why women are attracted to that dark triad.
And unfortunately, why the reason so many really bad people have absolutely no problem bringing victims into relationships with them, unfortunately, because I can totally see why it would be unattractive. They almost like act completely without stress, in that matter.
Exactly.
And like, I've seen those people in person, and it's like they immediately bring forth a very powerful demeanor in every circumstance that they operate in, because they don't care to fail, and in not caring to fail, they eliminate failing almost completely. Because how many, like, honestly, you only truly fail in social circumstances when you bring that fear really inside of it. And so that's I agree with what you said about the dark triads as well too. Would you say that there's a lot of men who have the ability to attract a long-term mate in today's society, or would you say that number is getting smaller and smaller?
Well, the bulk of men that I'm seeing who are having trouble attracting women, they don't seem to care about brushing up on social skills. They don't seem to care about personal hygiene, as crappy as that sounds, But I come across quite a few different clips and the videos and stuff like that where I'll see a guy asking for advice, like from Rich Cooper or something like that, and the guy looked like he literally rolled out of bed and didn't comb his hair or shave, and Rich Cooper actually told me, he's like, dude, you need to groom yourself, and then he's writing into or calling in and asking, dude, what's my problem? No girls will look at me. And it's like, well, if you don't take care of your appearance and practice basic hygiene, no woman is attracted to that. We like a man who smells great. I mean, smell is really important. You guys can wear cologne and stuff and you smell yummy, So, just clean yourself up and wear something presentable that looks good on your physique, that's flattering to you, a little bit stylish or something, and put your best self forward.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's mainly what the problem is, or they don't take care of their physique. Obviously, you're in shape and stuff, and obviously probably don't have too much trouble. Well, you have someone in your life, so hit the gym, do things that are challenging and hard for you that will help you build character as a man. Because a lot of what I see, as a woman, and how intuitive we are, we can always tell when a man is what they call wet behind the ears, where he just doesn't know much of anything because he's inexperienced in life. Overall, he doesn't have experience with women. He doesn't have much life experience under his belt. Doesn't have much experience talking with people. That's very off-putting.
Yeah.
So, men they're designed to be these go-getters who go out and claim a part of the world for themselves, a piece of it for themselves, and they go out and conquer. They go out and every conquest, and they see things. I'm going to take this. This is going to be mine. If a man is very timid in that way, women are very turned off from that. We like a go-getter, a guy that is confident and knows what he wants and how to go out and get it.
For sure. There's a massive push in the world to make men more effeminate. From a woman, do you view, I think I know the answer to this one based off of our previous conversations, as well as what you've posted on it, but is there any merit to the people saying that women want effeminate men at all?
Well, according to some studies done, women who use birth control often have that kind of fouled up in their head where they think they want a more effeminate guy, because what happens with birth control is you're basically tricking your body into thinking that it's pregnant. So you're putting out a lot less sex hormones than when you're pregnant, those things slow down to a halt. So when you're taking the pill, you don't need sex. You don't feel the physical need to have sex unlike you would if you were not on the pill. Like, I've never taken the pill, and I talked about this before, that I had in my younger years a sky-high sex drive that could probably rival a man. And I've never been turned on by men that look like women or who are effeminate. For me, it's always been the really cut jaw, really masculine, really, you look at him and you say, that's a man. Like, there's no guessing, that's always been the kind that I've been attracted to and have been attracted to me. So I can't really wrap my mind around women who purposefully seek out an effeminate guy. I don't know. There are beta females who are probably more suited for a man like that because they don't have the feminine characteristics to match or have that polarity with a masculine man. So they kind of look for someone similar to themselves in demeanor also, so that they could probably control him a little. more too,
Yeah,
docile. And so,
for sure.
um,
I
go
feel like
ahead.
in that sense, a lot of times it's the more masculine women who seek, and it's not out of being attracted to effeminate men, but they want that effeminate men because they're, like you said, it's a power thing. They're easy to control, and that kind
Yes.
of defeats the whole purpose of it. If that, like, honestly, in the end, do you think that women who prefer like dad bods are lying to themselves?
I, women prefer male character. I have seen the most unattractive men who just they got tons of babies mamas everywhere. Like if from what I saw in the past, it was always some substandard looking man who had 6 or 7 girlfriends all the time. So I'm not going to sit here and say that women prefer a dad bod, but women put on blinders when it comes to character, when it comes to the dark triad. I've known guys that have dark triad traits who are nothing at all to look at or write home about, and they have these women wrapped around their finger. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, um, but yeah, women do like a fit guy. We always like a really handsome guy. I mean, just like men like a really beautiful girl. Aesthetics are important, but they're not the be all and end all. But in truth, a really good looking fit guy is going to have his pick and choose of women nowadays because there's so many men who do not embody any type of masculine phenotype.
Mm-hmm.
So, they flock to wherever they can find it. And it's just funny to see how soft so many men are. Like when I was a kid, I put up kind of a little bit of a lesson. It was a few months ago about um, this movie called Revenge of the Nerds. I don't know if you ever
Mm.
saw it, but it's a really old movie.
I've
Um,
only ever heard of it. I'm not that old.
well, it was, I want to say 84 or something like that.
Mm.
But they had to actually lampoon the characters and make them be less masculine. They had to really play that up because even the actors back then were already too masculine to embody that kind of soft, dorky, weird guy. So I mean, it was completely exaggerated. The caricatures and that were funny, but now it's like you can find, and then those guys in that movie are more masculine than these dorks than a lot of these guys I see now. So now, I mean, they would have no problem finding really soft men to portray a character like that. But
Yeah.
back then, it was really hard to find men who even looked like that. So,
Yeah. I think to a point, society changing into like being a little bit more tolerant of that stuff is good to a point because I mean, some of the things that I heard that happened back in the 80s, I mean, obviously weren't the best and whatnot. But I truly think that there should be a certain level of harshness that is almost that is accepted with society. Like for me personally, if I wasn't told I was fat, I wouldn't have got super fit and then made my life a million times better than it was. That was something that ultimately turned out to be a blessing. It was people who were being dicks that kind of made me much better. Yeah.
absolutely. There was no there was no pulling punches then. Like
Yeah.
if you weren't up to the standards of then, people had no problem saying that. Like for instance, that Michael Jackson had a song called "Bad," and Weird Al Yankovic parodied that song, and the song was called "Fat." I don't know if
Yeah.
you're ever interested in watching the video, but it's absolutely hysterical.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
um, if they were to make something like that now, oh my God, there would be outrage from here to Georgia with that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it was just you could call people fat, you could call people ugly, you could call people, not to say that those things are very nice to say, but I mean, you know, people just didn't pull punches then. And then the same thing with the way they talk about women now, like all women are beautiful and stuff like that.
Bullshit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Same thing for men too. Like it's like you all generalizing something as big as all men. Believe all women or all men are capable, attractive human. Like all those things, all those generalizations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, we could just everybody's fits into the same hole, you know. Everybody's a square, they're a round peg that can fit in a round hole. It's just so not true. The things that they used to say back then, there was no PC stuff. Like, I mean, you can watch any movie and you can see them say the word retard, or even the word retard now is being censored out of all of the new films and stuff, I noticed.
Yeah.
Or they'll have it dubbed out of, if it's an older movie and they say that in the movie, I notice they bleep it out. And I'm like, but so the word retard is like a bad word now,
Yeah.
you know, the word fat is bad, you know, it was put, but I find that I have to very much temper some of the things I say, like on my stories and stuff. I have to backspace and say, this needs to be cleaned up a little to make it. But I mean, that's just good PR. But
Exactly. You're running a business there. You don't want to get canceled by every single person in the media over something that you say.
right. But I mean, and at the same time, you know, I do have a lot of compassion for people. You know, life isn't fair. We're all dealt our own hand and stuff. But it's just up to us to make the best of the hand that we're dealt. You know?
Yeah. You know, I think when it comes to stuff that people can't change, those are the things that should be left alone completely when it comes to, you know, your criticisms of other people. But if I had someone come up to me and they asked me, "Hey man, am I a good look?" or "Hey man, do I look like a good-looking man?" You know, it would be wrong for me to say yes almost. You know, there's certainly like a better way I can maybe phrase it. Like I can talk about their strengths a little bit and then bring in their weaknesses, but it's that lack of honesty when people that comes to people and their conversations with other people that I think is really ruining everyone in general. You know, when it comes to something that I'm asking for feedback on, I want the truth, even if it hurts to hear. I don't want to be led on to believe that what I'm doing is acceptable in that area if it completely isn't. You know, for an example, one of the relationships I had, you know, I thought everything was going great. I thought having the time of my life. When it comes to people and you're looking to be better, you're looking to improve on whatever you're improving, and you aren't being told the brutally hard, honest truth about it, that's not being a good person. You know, a lot of times being a good person has to do with being willing to say the bad things and the things that are often in today's society almost even called evil in order to make the person better. You want the coach who's able to be a little bit of aggressive and mean about what he's saying because it's honest. And it sounds mean, it sounds aggressive because he's calling it out as it is. You never want someone to, you know, halfway kind of, like, you know, to sort of hide the issue when it comes to like trying to make someone better. And in the relationship that I was just talking about, I was really enjoying the relationship. It was going incredible, at least that's what I thought. And then out of the blue, the girl tried to break up with me over an issue that I had no clue about. I didn't think was a problem. I think I met myself as a person who's pretty decent at, you know, analyzing life and seeing what I could do better. But because it wasn't brought up and because it went completely unspoken about, I think out of, you know, fear of wanting to cause a stressful, you know, conversation, it ultimately led to a breakup. And that's, I think, one of the more extreme examples of what not being honest and not being willing to say, you know, the uncomfortable things can do for you. But that's something that happened, and it's something that, you know, really brought forth the emphasis of being a good communicator and being a person who's willing to be an uncomfortable communicator as well too, because a lot of the best conversations I've had where I've gained the most from have been incredibly uncomfortable, or the conversations that I feel almost hurt from at the end, but they were the conversations that ultimately built me into the person that I'm happy that I am.
Yeah, and honesty and that kind of forthrightness is something that men tend to prize. They very much prize brutal honesty. That's not, just to say, that's not really a female trait. it's not really something that women tend to warm to. I'm like that though. I don't like beating around the bush. I don't like the sleight of hand. I want to know what the facts are. I want to, I don't care. I don't like having having people dance around anything with me. So I'm like that. But you will find that a lot of women are not like that. They don't appreciate that. So you have to really temper what you say around them. And I think that's, that's not necessarily a bad thing. So, I mean, you can keep diplomacy about it. But I mean, really, you can say whatever you want to someone if you say it diplomatically, or if you say it to where it's palatable to the other person and they can understand, and you can be reasonable and be civil with them. I mean, obviously, you have your boss give you constructive criticism where they sit you down and say, well, you did this or that wrong, needs to be fixed. So, I mean, if I've just found that I can be completely honest with people, but I have to have that diplomacy along with it.
Would you say that men who own their mistakes, and even when it comes to things that might not be completely their fault, that they assume ownership of the situation and honestly just, this is my fault, I'll be better in this sense, would you say that their relationships are happier, or that they start kind of becoming the scapegoat for whatever might be failing in the relationship?
I think that men who can take an honest route and see objectively what needs to be fixed in a relationship and go to work on it to solving the problem, they can get a lot done. Women, they like that. There's a leadership quality in a man to say, oh, well, this isn't working, so I'm going to delegate authority here and I'm going to go in and fix it. That's an attractive quality. But I've noticed that, and that I've heard this too, and maybe you can kind of explain it to me, but some men are just completely oblivious as to what is going on in their relationship. Like they don't know that the woman is like sniffing around at other man's door or something. It just all of a sudden happens, or they didn't see it coming down the pike. And I have a very hard time believing that. So,
I think when it comes to that, I think there's two situations. One where like the woman is seriously like trying to hide her interactions, and that might also be part of the guy's fault too, because I feel like humans in general have pretty excellent bullshit detectors, and especially humans who have some basis of intelligence and social skills, they're able to understand when their partner is holding something back or just ultimately hiding in general too. The conversations of what's wrong, the person replies nothing, obviously something's wrong then. Or, hey, what's up? I'm okay, period. Stuff like that where it's very easy to see, okay, something obviously is not wrong. Then you get to the other area where it's very blatant that stuff is going wrong and the girl is maybe not being faithful or putting themselves in a place where they're not going to be faithful. And the guy, I think, is choosing to ignore it, but because he's clinging on to the small part of what makes him happy, even though it's quickly leading to a path of just pure unhappiness. I feel like it's almost like guy's getting all the sex he wants in the world, or some of the sex he wants in the world. He's willing to ignore some of the really big warning signs that are becoming more apparent because he's getting sex.
Oh wow.
That's at least what I see from my area, my position too. And quite honestly, I've probably been there a little bit too, where it's like someone's unhappy in the relationship, but they're willing to, sort of ignore it, or they notice the other person isn't happy, but they're willing to ignore it because they're okay. They might not even be happy themselves, but it's sort of like a normal that they've now assumed to be acceptable.
Right. That's interesting, and especially that's one thing that women that I have a hard time with is they don't understand sex for men, like how physical of a need that is, rather than it being like an emotional one. It is emotional for men, but men can completely cut off any emotion from sex. So that makes sense. that what you said, just as long as they're getting their fill of sex, they're willing to overlook many different things that you, I kind of learned something new there. But
Oh yeah. It's really interesting looking into it, and it's certainly something that I don't really understand too. And especially, I remember you posting something, and this was a big realization for me. It was something along the lines of men don't have to actually like the person they're having sex with, and I'm like, that is honestly kind of true. I remember, especially in high school, you know, you'd be talking to a guy, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I totally banged this person, but I hate them." And I'm just like, that's honestly a really interesting thing to say. For the women, would you say it's the exact opposite?
no, or yeah, it is. I thought you were saying, is it different? Is it the same? No,
Yeah.
definitely not like that at all. Like women don't have like a sort of hate fuck thing that will absolutely despise a guy. But the thing is, when a woman says that she hates a man, that's often akin to I love the man.
Yeah.
So,
It's
but
funny. I feel like a lot of I noticed that a lot of the people who would just honestly who would publicly hate each other almost ended up with each other
mhm,
too, or there was some level of attraction with that. What
mhm.
is that? Like how would you explain that?
The love isn't the opposite of hate. The opposite of love, or the opposite, how does it go? The opposite of love is indifference. If a
Hmm.
person is indifferent to you, they don't really care about you. But if a person hates you, like if they say that when you legit love someone, it can easily coalesce over into hate.
Interesting. Yeah.
Um, like something happens, you betray them. As long as the hate is there, there's still an attachment, a love attachment. But if you betray someone and they just don't care, they never really cared about you to begin with.
I think it's
So,
one of those things where it's like emotion. It's like the whole. It's one of Newton's laws where it's like matter cannot be created or destroyed, only changed. It's almost like that where it's like if you truly love someone, that love, the energy associated with that love, isn't going to disappear. It's just going to be almost converted into something new. And I think that's kind of what you said, where it changes into hate. You know, they were wronged. They're not going to feel indifferent about the person. They're just going to hate them or dislike them now, or even still partial, or a combination of the two, in a
right.
sense. Yeah.
Mhm. Yes.
Um, Super interesting stuff. This is awesome. When it comes to sex and relationships, should it be saved for long term relationships, or would you say? And I have my opinion on it, my belief on it. But do you think it is something that should be had for people seeking, or just dating, not looking for like a wife or husband?
I would say that sex should be reserved for someone that you have a legitimate connection with, like
Mm-hmm.
not one that's just throwaway. I wouldn't care if this person was around next week. I mean, take some time to foster a connection with someone, get to know them on a more meaningful level. Then
Yeah.
you can decide if you're sexually compatible. I mean, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I understand that there's sexual compatibility based on physical attraction and chemistry when you very first meet someone. And I can't really speak for everyone, but every man that I've ever met that I've had that kind of attraction with, I was always compatible with them as well in other ways, like
Mm-hmm.
same kind of personality. I think that people have like a genetic code within them to seek out another person that fits them genetically, and that's what chemistry is. And I can't really think off the top of my head. I can't think of one man that I was ever attracted to in the past like that, the electric attraction that I often talk about, where I didn't connect with him in other ways, and he didn't connect with me. So instead of just well, this person kind of fills the void for now. I'm pretty indifferent to him. I don't really like him, but I don't hate him. I'm just leave those kind of connections behind. If you don't have a good connection with someone, then don't pursue it. But it's all about meaningful connection, and sex should be a manifestation of that. It should be a bridge off of that to express how you feel about the other person. I see people adamant about, well, they slept around before and all of a sudden they want to be born again virgins and find some redemption in themselves religiously or for whatever reason. And it's like, they're putting the horse before the carriage. It's like, do you love the person? Could you see yourself being with them? Do you really like them? Do you get a good feeling about them, and you could see yourself with it? Look at those things before you think about having sex with someone.
Yeah, very important stuff. I feel like a lot of, and unfortunately, I don't think it always was like this, but especially in like a lot of religious circles, even the ones that, I'm a Christian, and ones that I'm a part of, I noticed that so many people are willing to settle with someone who isn't quality, or the quality that they actually desire. I think for me personally, I think a lot of times I see it because they're comfortable with that person. They don't really push them out of like what they're fully comfortable inside. They're not really, I feel like a lot of strong men and a lot of desirable men are almost dangerous and almost stressful to be around in a sense. And a lot of the girls, sometimes, especially girls in Christian circles, I feel like are almost kind of, they dislike that in a sense because it's something that they don't truly understand. Why do you think that people settle for someone that they don't have that chemistry with, they don't truly maybe even love, but they tell themselves they do? Yeah.
A lot of it's loneliness, and a lot of it is they spend their relationship doing the FOMO thing. Well, I might as well it just makes sense. He checks off all the boxes. My family likes him. We have the same things in common, but there's no chemistry. There's no real connection there. And I hate to say it, but a lot of people have passed up the one that they were supposed to be with many years ago in their past as young people. I mean, pretty much every young person has that gut aching sort of romance, tragic romance that they have. If you haven't had that yet, you haven't really lived. So I suggest you go out and have something like that. But with like our grandparents, they were with people who they went to school with, and they married right out of high school. And like my in-laws, they've been married for 65 years. Wow. And they got married at age 19 right out of high school. I mean, you have your peak hormones, your peak desirability. The man's brain is a complete blank slate, where his first real eroticized images are of a woman in her physical prime, and they bond that way. They make love, and they're making out, kissing all the time. Then they go to the next level, get married. I mean, I'm hearing about men nowadays who get their first real eroticized imprint on their brain, like I was talking about, from porn. Yeah. So they develop an attachment to the woman that in porn. They kind of become obsessed with her or something, or women who look like her. Yeah. So, I mean, that's so damaging. I mean, for men, their very first couple of erotic experiences, or they take those with them for a lifetime. And they often, every woman that comes after that is kind of held to that standard involuntarily to them. I mean, it's not like they sit there and say, I'm going to compare these two people because it bothers me or it bugs me, but it's just an association they make. You know, this girl was different than my first girl, especially if the first girl he's with he's really crazy about her. Yeah.
You know? I feel like the idea of pair bonding, you and me both get it. I remember I was on one date when I was single, and this girl, I was definitely not a quality girl. Like if I knew anything about this female before I went on the date with her, would have immediately called it off like a million years before it happened. But so also funny thing was she was an overshare to like the max. Heard some really uncomfortable things. on this date that I would just never have needed to know or wanted to know. Maybe if it was like a super long-term relationship, obviously not something that I ever would have had with this woman. But I remember she said something about, like the other guys that she's been with. And at this point, I'd already heard a million details that I just didn't care about. And so, like, I mentioned something about pair bonding, and I was like, do you think it's real? And her answer was, no, definitely not a thing. Like, there's no emotional contact with someone during sex. And I was like, okay, how many partners have you had? Over 50. Over 50 men that she slept with. And that was sort of like, okay, gotcha. All right, that's why we believe that now as well, too. When it comes to, like, talking to... There's obviously, I feel like to a point... the more women a guy slept with, the more value other people kind of perceive him having. I disagree with that to a point, like, etc. If a guy's able to be with a lot of women, I think that means a lot about them. But if he's willing to sleep with every single one of them, that's a detractor of his personality and of his desire. But when it comes to pair bonding from a woman's perspective, how important is it, like, to have few, if any, people who you have had sexual encounters with?
I think it's very important because obviously with the example that you just gave with the woman who said that she slept with over 50 guys and completely discounted the fact of that pair bonding even exists at all, because like they say, women are solipsistic and they only view relationships through the lens from which they personally view them. I personally know someone who grew up in my childhood. She had a very tragic childhood. She was molested by her stepfather. She went completely downhill from there. Yeah. I slept with untold numbers of men. I think she's now on her 4th marriage. Wow. Has 2 illegitimate children. The father is not around. They're grown now. But she would literally tell me, I can't deal with guys that want to cuddle and stuff after sex. I just want to get up and leave. She told me that, and we were only like 18 or 19 at that time.
Wow.
So she had already been, because I mean, she had kids when she had her first kid when she was 14, had her next kid when she was 16. So, and then in between time, her mother and grandmother were taking care of her children while she was going out gallivanting everywhere and just really, really sleeping around. I mean, if it wasn't for the stepfather, the molestation thing when she was like 9 or so, I don't know. He totally screwed her whole life up, though.
Wow.
That was my very first glimpse into what happens to a woman when she sleeps around. It completely lose their ability to bond. And then, and that goes for her 4 marriages. I don't know if I haven't talked to her in years, but last I saw, she was on her 3rd or 4th marriage. So.
Absolutely crazy. I really dislike, and I don't know, there's certainly like a middle ground. Like it's not a one size fits all answer to it. But I would say, from my perspective, like, women almost lose their value as they've been with more people, and that isn't true for everyone. Like that I've met some really low quality women who have been with no one in their life, and also met some really high quality women who have had multiple partners. But do you think it's valid for men to want a woman who's been with few, if any, other men?
I don't think I'll just be honest. This whole it's a multi-pronged.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables to play with.
Yeah. Exactly, because nowadays you're very easily potentially meeting any woman that you may come across who has easily slept within the upper double digits or lower triple digits. And that is, I can see where men would have that distinction where they're absolutely not. I would never date a woman like that. It makes total sense for a man to ask a question like that, being that the problem is so prevalent nowadays. I mean, just think of our parents or our grandparents. They never had to ask a woman how many dudes she's been with, but it's a valid question to ask nowadays with so many women who are piling up bodies, but if a man is overly concerned with that, I feel like, I don't know if there's some kind of hypocrisy there. Because I mean, if it's okay for him to go and screw around
Yeah. Yeah.
with as many women as he wants, but he wants to, place barriers on that with other women, there has to be some consistency here.
I agree. I think it's much more acceptable for a guy who's had few, if any, partners to want someone who I think matching it, if they want someone who matches or is close to matching their number of partners or lack thereof, that makes a lot more sense than like a guy who's had like 300 sexual encounters and wants someone with like less than 10.
Well, I find that to be very disgusting. Like,
Yeah.
they used to call them man whores
Oh yeah,
back
100%.
in my day, and it just I've had a couple of guys who were notorious for that, and they wanted to go out with it. I was like, dude, you're a slut. There was like no way I would even entertain even being with you, especially the girls that he's been with and stuff. It's not like, and nowadays they can do it on the down low and get as many women and men can sleep with as many strangers as they want on apps. But back when I was young, it's like word got around. Like, we didn't have the choice of sleeping with someone on the other side of the country. So usually it was limited to your local area where people would sleep together, and then word would get around, and then reputations would be tarnished from that, and we knew to stay away from someone. But potentially you could meet someone on a dating app. They've slept with thousands of people. You have no idea who they've been with,
Mhm.
and people lie about it too. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know if men would be more prone to lying about it.
I think it'd be situational. Like, so they might be prone, like, depending on who they're with. If it's a person who might value the ability to attract other women, then they might think it's oppressive that the guy has had 300 sexual encounters. But if it's a woman who sees like the sex part of it as more of like you're giving value away, then they might think it's more impressive that they've had little. And then between decide if it's like a guy who's like trying to downplay or upplay. It just kind of depends on the situation. Which it's such a, if you're looking into anything long term, lying is not the way to go about it at all. Like, there's nothing beautiful about dishonesty in any circumstance, and it might make them like somewhat more attracted to you for a little bit. But like I said earlier, like, women and men, they have pretty excellent bullshit detectors. Like, it's pretty easy to tell when someone is completely lying about whatever they've done. But yeah.
Well, and then that's the thing. It's like, how much is too much for a woman? I mean, these things seem to be subjective from one person to another. For instance, if a woman's been with 25 guys, the guy who's been with 50 might think that that's not that many. But if the guy that is only been with 3 or 4 and he meets a girl who's been with 25, it's like, oh, well, that might not be acceptable to him.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like the conversation that evolves around that, the conversation has evolved into how many people have you, rather than like, being able to have other qualities about them that are more important than that's now something that's important too,
Yeah.
It is, I've been in a monogamous relationship for almost 2 decades, so I have no idea what's going on out there. Like, if I was single or something, getting on an app, I don't even know. I don't know. I have no idea how I would do, what I would do, how I would approach things. I have no clue.
It was interesting.
I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
It was interesting for me because I was in a relationship for 3 years, 4 years, broke up with them, and decided to download Tinder. It wasn't to hook. If anything, it was like feel kind of like I needed something almost to conquer, like not trying to, be manipulative, but just having like having something to go out and do in terms of like meeting somebody, like getting that little burst of dopamine and adrenaline from like meeting someone new and developing a relationship, even if it isn't meant to be an actual relationship, just like getting to know them, meeting their parents and whatnot. Like that was almost like that was the most fun thing for me. And it was just like it wasn't anything of like technically didn't really hook up with anyone, but it was like the most fun I had was just meeting new people, talking with new people, and just learning it, like just hearing people's stories. Like that was, for me, that was like the most interesting thing of it too. And then like on the complete other end of it was like all the girls who like were really wanting to like hook up, have sex. Like immediately for me that was a turnoff, because it's like, you don't even know me. You're giving, if you're giving this away to me, like your gift has no value. Like you do it for anyone, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, a gift that you would give to literally 9 out of 10 guys for me is like a gift that I don't want, because like what value does it have behind it? Like, there's very little, unfortunately. Yeah, no, it's interesting. I feel like on the opposite, kind of on the same page of being like a man whore, the guys, obviously people who are man whores, they're able to get a lot of women like through whatever means. You and me would both say, I'd say that's quite unattractive. Like, it's not a good look to be a man whore at all.
It depends on the guy.
Yeah.
Like Sean Connery is very much, as James Bond was a man whore, right?
Yeah.
He would kind of lay up with really high quality chicks. So, and then you got Magic Johnson, who bedded well over 3,000 women. And obviously those were probably very attractive, but I mean, look at the repercussions from that. It depends, if it's a guy who will sleep with anyone, because I mean, you got guys that are just so horny, they'll sleep with fatties or whatever. Or sorry, I know I shouldn't say that, but
hey, I agree with you on that one. Yeah.
But they're just like, I'll do anything for my nuts. I'll go get a fatty or something. Or, that is very unattractive. It's like,
yeah.
if you can point your finger and be selective and have those people be, reciprocate you, then that can be attractive. But if they're indiscriminate and they'll just do it with anyone, anywhere, that's just no. And then, like I said, when I was a kid, when I was young, it's like, well, word got around if you were with such and such people. So, and you would be judged by the caliber of people that you were laying up with,
Yeah.
There was a guy that I went out with, very attractive, very, very attractive. And I came across, this was when we still had, pictures. We would use cameras to take pictures in actual film and get it developed. And he had pictures of gorgeous girls, just bikinis and tight jeans. I was just like, this is insane. At the same time, it kind of turned me on a little bit. I was like, this guy can get girls like that. And he obviously finds me attractive. So I'm okay with that, I guess. I'm like a contender among them. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. It's coming like a guy, like to try and put myself in your shoes, a little hard, but it does make sense. I think like if a guy's able to get a lot of girls, he chooses all of them. Obviously that's not an attractive look. Obviously there's some value that he has where like the girls are willing to be with him, but the fact that he's choosing indiscriminately is not attractive. I feel like the guy who is able to get a lot of women, but is either very selective or just doesn't really think about it and doesn't act on any of it. That is like, I kind of like where I feel like the men are truly separated in terms of like the huge difference of like high value man versus like top 1% of man who can like do really anything he wants.
Exactly. It's what makes a man high value is the opportunities that he says no to. Yeah,
that's great. I love that. I'm saving that. That was a great one. Great quote. Certainly, I know exactly what we just talked about. To finish it off with an interesting question that I'd love to hear about. For people in relationships where the sex drive is not matched at all, it's a hard topic to talk about, especially I feel like many Christian, like we talked about earlier, many Christian circles, they get married and they're unable to have much sex, if any sex, because of the very different sex drives that they both have, whether it's due to birth control or just whatever reasons. How should couples approach that if they're together but the sex drives are wildly different?
Okay, I have trouble. I'm sure it's a problem that people encounter quite often, but I feel like when you're with somebody that you're really attracted to, that's what brings out your sex drive.
Yeah.
Like, I'm actually the one that had a higher sex drive than my husband. I mean, he was pretty up there, but I mean, I was like an animal. Like I couldn't get enough from him constantly, and it can be a source of contention when he would tell me no sometimes. And I'm glad I'm past this stage of my life, but he would tell me no sometimes, and I would get angry. Like I could light the house on fire or something. It's like this biological need is not being met. I was obsessed about it. So naturally it wasn't hard for me to get it, but there were some times when he was too tired. I would say that you guys need to like party together, like go out and have a good time. That's what we used to do. We would, if we were having trouble in that department or we just wanted to be alone, we would go out and party together, like go out and have fun together.
Yeah.
And create the atmosphere that will help you relax and have fun and feel more sexy. Like you have to do that. You have to have fun in your relationship. Because if the person, like, they come home or whatever, they're tired, and you're demanding sex right when they come through the door, that's not really creating a sexy atmosphere. First, you cook the man a good meal, and then make him feel good, compliment him a little bit, and maybe put some perfume on, wear something really pretty, make it sensuous between you. If you don't have a mismatch sex drive, I kind of have a hard time believing that exists on its own. Because if you're really attracted to people, the person, then wouldn't you want to have sex all the time? Maybe I just don't have the right answer for that. I don't know.
Yeah. I agree with what you said. I think the problem is when you start laying on like a million other variables, like exorbitantly high stress levels, birth control, lack of physical fitness, lack of nutrition, lack of quality sleep, then that attraction sort of becomes muddled. And especially like if the other person has is very optimized in that sense. Like for me personally, it's like I've had zero problem having a sex drive ever. And like from most of the guys that I've talked to, it's probably higher than the average man in that sense too. So like I've never really ever thought about I've ever struggled with that too. But I can totally imagine why the same with the girl who is on birth control, doesn't take care of herself. It's like it kind of makes sense why you don't have a sex drive, and it's at that point it's almost up to you to fix it if you want to, experience that. It's hard when you want it more than the other person though. Oh,
okay.
Oh, yeah. What was the last thing you heard?
Your internet connection. Let me see if it's mine or. No, mine looks fine. I'm here, right?
Yeah, you're here.
Okay. You were talking about how great your sex drive, and you're talking about women who are taking birth control. Another thing that you'll have to is antidepressants for both men and women. Those kill the sex drive too.
Oh yeah.
So you might want to take that into consideration. I don't know. Some people have to take those. They're maybe dependent on them just to get by day to day. But if you can get off of those, get off any kind of pill and start using like an exercise pill, like go to the gym and stuff. I mean, the gym is the most optimal way to boost your sex drive.
Along with a million other great things that we should all be seeking. I feel like so many people, it's like they want the gains, but it's like, dude, the quality of life you'll get too. It's like, you'll obviously look a lot better, but you'll feel a lot better. Your sex drive will go through the roof. You'll be more desirable because people see you like wanting to like improve yourself in that sense too. It's like it's a win-win for everyone. There's like besides an hour of your day and like actively having to put in some effort for it, which is all turns out to be a great thing. It's like, why aren't you doing something? It doesn't have to be lifting weights, but why aren't you going on runs, doing something to make you better in that sense? It's always kind of confused me. It's like, why aren't you doing that? You know, it's like, oh, I don't have time. Bullshit, you don't have time. Yeah, you spend 3 hours watching Netflix a day. Bullshit, you don't have time. In that sense. But yeah, there's a million things that we can do to be optimized. It looks like we are over an hour for the podcast. Unfortunately, this is around the time that most people start zoning off, and the information here was so incredible that let's try and avoid that by closing out. But where can they find you on social media?
You can go to my Instagram. The handle is Take the Love Pill. And I also have a huge resource of relationship and sex articles at lovepilled.com. I have over 250 articles there for both men and women. So
incredible.
Those, make sure you check those out.
As someone who has read and followed her page and blog for a long time, you will certainly be missing out if you don't check this out. You know, if you think that you've maxed out your relationship, you're lying to yourself. You know, it's never something you can truly be 100% of. We're always growing, we're always learning, and if we aren't choosing to take the opportunities that are given to us to be better people, especially in our relationship, we're doing ourselves and the other person a disservice. So go follow her. Jenny, thank you so much for coming on today. An absolute blast. I'm going to have you on in the future because...
I loved it. I love how you have a really good flow and you know how to talk, and you have really good talking about social skills. You have very good social skills.
Hey, well, it took a lot of practice. Unfortunately, if you look back at my first few podcasts, honestly, even up to like the 15th one, it was embarrassing to say the least when it came to, you know, me being a decent speaker. But I appreciate you saying that right now.
Well, this stuff takes practice. So if you're out there and you need social skills, practice.
Start a podcast.
Yeah. Talk to people.
Yes. Well, I hope everyone has a great day. Make sure you check her out and have a wonderful time. Peace.